You should care about other people. Some people hear that statement and go, of course you should. That's a no-brainer. To those types of people, saying that you should have compassion and love in your heart for other human beings is akin to saying that humans need air to breathe. Well, duh, you should care for others. But there are a lot of people who hear that statement and go, why? And that puzzles me sometimes. Society, especially in America, loves to drill this notion into its citizens that all human beings are islands, that we are all merely ships passing one another through life, and I think that's inaccurate to say the least. No one exists by themselves. Everyone has value and worth the moment they are born, and that value only increases as time goes on, and that individual gains experiences, perspectives, and the like that are uniquely their own. But how do you explain that to the kinds of people who ask why, when posed with the statement, you should care about people? So I had an idea that maybe I could try to logic empathy into those people. Maybe I can explain to someone why even selfishly they should care about others. So with that said, let's get started. Okay, value is obviously subjective. So how could we possibly measure the value of people? We obviously can't measure people monetarily because it feels unethical, but also I have no idea how to buy and operate a prison. So we have to remove monetary qualifiers, but then that just leaves subjective worth. But that's even more of a mess because that varies drastically person to person, hence the definition of subjective. While I may value my cat despite him doing nothing but sleeping in the sun most of the day, it would also be accurate for someone else to say he has no value. So even subjectively, value as a concept means nothing. Can something be priceless and simultaneously worthless? This, I think, is the biggest issue I will come across trying to quote-unquote logic my way into making you care about other people. I can really only speak for Americans as I've only lived here and know the culture thoroughly, but I would bet any amount of money that if you ask the average American how they define an individual's value without monetary qualifications, their answer is influenced heavily by society, based on factors like whose life is being called into question, is it a criminal, a child, and whether that down-home, average small town, the sweat and soul, heart of the country, apple pie eating American believe that the person in question life has been or will be wasted based on personal biases. As an American, we are taught that individual freedom and the right to choice are invaluable, that those freedoms are something an individual should be willing to live by and die for if necessary. A philosophy with which I agree wholeheartedly. A life with as much freedom and liberty as possible is the only true way to define the value of life. A life in which the individual cannot do what will bring the most choice and fulfillment of life is one I believe most sensible individuals, at least in America, would agree is one that is wasted or quote-unquote worthless. Though the Western view of the individual and their freedom can be muddled due to vagueness. I believe this is intentional though. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, those are the words in the Declaration of Independence and are supposed to be looked at as your rights that no one can ever take away from you. But I think that vagueness is on purpose because while no one can take those rights from you, they also never have to acknowledge if you were never given them in the first place. If you don't attain life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it is a failure on you, the individual. My own personal beliefs change these rights a bit to fit my own worldview. Everyone is owed the right and should pursue a life that brings them the utmost joy and freedom as long as these freedoms do not impede another's ability to do the same. What I mean by this assertion is that no one person's freedoms supersedes another's. As such, personal biases do not allow one to conflict with another's life or lifestyle decisions, as long as they are not harming or stopping someone else from living what they believe to be their best life on an individual level. So your personal biases cannot tell me I can't drink a beer when I want, as long as I am not harming anyone. But more importantly, your personal views or even your God cannot tell me what I can and can't do either, because that would impose your will onto my freedom. Though a personal philosophy, this is essentially what I believe most Americans think of when they talk about freedom in this country. To live one's own definition of their best life to the best of their abilities without hindrance, because that is in essence the only way to have a valuable life. Any organization, persons, etc. that impede the individual who brings no harm to another with their lifestyles in an attempt to live a fulfilling life is one I would argue is an incorrect one. I request that anyone watching this ask themselves if the system of which we live under truly allows the individual, every individual, no matter your own personal biases, to live their best and most authentic life. If one cannot say emphatically yes, and that no one person is somehow unable to have and live a valuable life, or at minimum have the means and tools available to create one for themselves, then a system in which those tools are available available must be created as a collective. Freedom is only strong when all of those who believe in its sanctity protect it in its entirety for everyone. Does the pregnant mother have the means available at her disposal to provide for the child with as limited strain upon herself as possible? Does the child once born have the resources available to them to grow up and have the same chances as every other individual, no matter the station in life to which they were born? It is no more the child's fault to be born impoverished than it is to be born at all. Can the young man who works 2 jobs and spends much of his adult life working truly say he has freedom, autonomy, that he has true agency, that his life ultimately has value because he has a choice and lives a life he would describe as filled with utmost joy, or does he merely lack the time to even question whether he is truly happy under this system? It is everyone's duty to solidify and argue for the freedoms of even the most invisible of us. Freedom is at the end of the day a concept that can be redefined on a whim. Do not allow biases to have you believe someone deserves less freedom than you, because that is the same thought in which an unjust system may take yours away.